Welcome, my crypto comics compatriots, to Creating Comics with me, your host, editor-in-chief, Matt, aka M. Scott Russell. Today, we're going to be working on creating character designs. Last week, what we had done was we actually brought creator Joe Spicer in. This week, we have Gerimi. Hey, Gerimi.
Hey, how's it going?
Creator of Morningstar and Eye of the Gods, and I gotta say, they're some of my all-time favorite comics. So
happy to hear that. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Before we get into that, let's actually take a look at what we've been doing in the past. Give me just 1 second. I got my kids screaming in the background.
Well, there's screaming kids in my comics, so it totally works. Goes with the theme.
All right, I'm back. Okay, so as you can see right here, we have what's known as the Bible. What we like to do is just create something that we actually know, like everything about basically all the characters and situations, and we've been doing this based off of chat. So anybody who actually joins in and kind of chimes in with something can be listed as a creator. So by all means, keep joining in. So right here we have the chat, we have the Bible. We have the main characters. There's 3 of them. There's Alex. Then we have Brian, which is one of the ones that Joe Spicer designed last week. And we have Yuasuke. So yeah, they're really, really cool characters. Okay.
Yeah. Matt, interesting. I'm not sure. Maybe I need to bring up the live channel because I'm not able to see the screen that I see the space where you're sharing the screen, but I don't get any of the graphics, so I actually can't.
This isn't any of the graphics yet.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
Okay, because the text that you're sharing, it doesn't come up on the monitor I'm looking at right now. I can see it if I go. I can see it if I go to the Twitch stream. So,
all right. Okay.
All right.
So, yeah, Joe had actually designed Brian and Poseidon last week, and we're having some internet difficulties. He was on vacation and trying to do it from a hotel. So I haven't actually received those particular images yet, but man, he was designing them live and it was looking good. I would have shown him off today. We'll have to do that at a little later date. So let's jump over here to chat. We got Toxic saying he's excited for this one. Yeah, awesome. A lot of people seem to be, especially Fry.
Well, I'm happy to hear it. Let's bring the heat.
And he's also telling me not to shout at my kids.
Well, you didn't shout at them. You didn't even threaten them. You just said they were shouting at you.
Yeah. I think it was Dennis Leary, the comedian. He was like, you know what? I never really threaten my kids, but you just kind of shoot a couple rounds off in the air, and everybody seems to listen. So.
That's a good one. I like Dennis Leary.
Oh, yeah. All right. So back over here, basically what the story that everybody's been creating so far is these 3 astronauts. They're working on a new drive. Essentially, it's a kind of a warp drive type situation. And they end up in a new reality where the pantheon or the Greek heroes, Greek deities are real. So we start off with science fiction and then go more towards the cartoony aspect of it. Last week, with Joe Spicer's kind of design for Poseidon, he went with a really bulking character with a lot of fish hooks and stuff like that, and kind of a treasure map tattooed across them. It was a really unique design for Poseidon. So, okay. that's, I mean, basically all we have for the main plot. Is there any particular character that you want to design today?
Well, heck, I'm up for it. You know what? Considering the fact that my comic book's about Lucifer, I think I have to go with Hades.
Oh, yes. Your art style would be perfect for that. Okay. So we're going to be designing Hades. Now, while you're doing that, let's actually take a quick look at your comic Morningstar, because I had some questions about some of the design aspects. That I love it. Mm-hmm. I was curious about some things. Let me share my screen again.
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay, here we start off with Eye of the Gods, and I do have to say a lot of the pictures of the main characters, I think you were looking in a mirror.
Well, I'll tell you, back in the convention days, whenever I talked to people and they would like hold up the cover, they'd beat me at the table and they hold the book. And I just tell them it's a lot easier to draw an entire graphic novel when you can use yourself as a model, as well as having to constantly look up reference. Fortunately, I don't have to go through half of the stuff that the main character in Eye of the Gods does.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I love this story. I love it. So, I do want to kind of save a little bit about this story for this Friday. We have the spotlight at 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, so it's going to be good. This one, it's really interesting because it's more just real people. So, I mean, there's not the superhero type where you have to design the costumes and all that kind of stuff. Does that make it easier or actually kind of harder?
I think to a certain degree, it makes it harder in the sense that I'm not necessarily a photorealistic artist. I've had to learn, when I say photorealistic, I don't even mean photorealistic, but I've had to learn how to use photo reference. I've literally had to teach myself, because you go through that thing where people say tracing's bad, which if you're just mindlessly tracing, I actually don't think that that's good. But I think when people talk about the negatives of tracing and copying photos, they don't go on to further explain how artists like Norman Rockwell or Alex Ross or artists where they actually shoot their own photographs of models dressed up in costume and pose them, and how photo reference unto itself becomes a tool to use to enhance your artwork. Okay. And being that that was something that I don't think I even necessarily applied that much in Eye of the Gods, but I just sort of started being that, and then as I moved into doing Morningstar, I realized, oh wait, I'm really drawing stuff that I don't know what it looks like. I have to get reference.
Okay.
And, so from that sense, I think drawing real world characters was probably harder because it didn't have just crazy stuff I could make up out of my head. I had to say, well, what do these buildings look like? What do these cars look like? I had to, and so it was relying on reference to try and create a sense of realism in real life, whereas what's inside of my world doesn't necessarily look like the real world. Inside my world is crazy. It's like the movie Cool World. It's like The Matrix. It's like just weird, just left of reality, wonky stuff. So that made it harder for me.
Okay. So Toxic says that blur effect is very unique. It is. I really do like it.
Well, thank you. I mean, that came just very simply from the need to very clearly delineate for viewers. The book is about a man. He's cursed with visions he can't control. He ends up witnessing a murder, only to find it's being reported in the news as a death by natural causes. So throughout the book, the main character Sean is constantly having these visions, and I needed to have a way to very quickly have the viewer be able to see and identify when he's having a vision versus when it's just normal comic book narrative. Okay. And the blur effect just seemed like the easiest way to do that. And now that I did it, I realized that I could have probably applied that to Morningstar in that there's a lot of flashbacks in the series. And I ended up going back, and I was originally trying to do the whole book with just black and white inks, no gray tone. And I was trying to go for that level of sort of like the Hernandez brothers with Love and Rockets. Not that I was going for that style, but trying to go for supreme minimalism. Trying to do as much storytelling with as little as possible, really to try to test my draftsmanship. Because if I can tell a very convincing story and create a rich world with just black and white, then that means if I were to add gray tone, if I could do books in color, whatever else I add to it, painted comics, if I just want to build up the chops that I can do an immersive story with the bare basics of comic book storytelling tools.
Wow. You succeeded. I love this story. It's such a fun one. But I do wanted to still show Morningstar and talk a little bit about that. It was really, really interesting kind of concept of setting it, the story of Lucifer Morningstar in the Old West. So how were you able to, let's get into it a little bit. You start off here with the darkness, and man, those teeth are just brutal looking. But then I noticed that as we get into the main characters, typically when you think of like the angels, in most of the old paintings and stuff like that, white people. I'm not trying to get political or anything. I'm just trying to, kind of state facts. But here you have Hispanics, blacks, and along with white people, and it all seems so natural for the Old West. Kind of like, what was the thought process in designing that into your characters?
Well, being a black creator, obviously I wanted a person of color front and center in the story. And I think that doing a biblical story where you're casting a black man as Lucifer could be seen as a political statement. Casting a white man as the devil could also be seen as a political statement. So in this story, Lucifer is black, the Archangel Michael is black. So it's not about race specifically, because beyond them, all of the other archangels are of different races, almost the idea of man being created in God's image. You've got amongst these archangels, you've got a very Nordic, very large Viking-looking man in Uriel, the angel of death. Remiel is Asian. Raphael's Latino, which that just seemed to make sense to me.
The name kind of gives it away.
Exactly. But the idea of having a multi-ethnic cast of archangels, such that like the creation of man, not that this story involves human beings, because the idea of the story is that the Old West is a metaphor. It doesn't take place in the time of the Old West. It takes place at the dawn of creation, before the earth is even really, created. And when the universe is just created, sort of this amorphous, area that it's a wild frontier. It hasn't really formed into the earth yet. It's almost like after the cosmic explosion, when the universe starts slowly forming, and you've got trees and forests and woods as a cosmic metaphor for that. That's why the Wild West, metaphor to me seemed to work very well for the dawn of creation. It's the beginning, it's the frontier before everything's been nailed down. But you've got all these archangels that have these different ethnicities. So yeah, that's where the multi-ethnic cast came from.
That's really cool. Now, when you were designing the demons, it seems like the males, I'm sorry, the males, just this big kind of bulking mammoths. I love the look of them with the dark skin, the breathing fire. They have the, what is it called? The hawk joint from like the horses and stuff like that on their hind leg. I love all that aspect. Like, how did you create that?
Well, with that, it started very simply where, honestly, G.I. Joe.
Hey, if you're gonna go with a hero, go with a real American hero, right?
Well, these being the villains, I wanted to have a character design. Since we're talking about character design, I wanted to have villains that would be very simple for me to draw. I didn't want to have extremely complex character designs for them.
Okay.
But I wanted them to look cool. And so think about with G.I. Joe, like you had all the different heroes that have really cool costumes, but the Cobra soldiers, their costumes were very, very simple, but they were still really, really cool.
Oh yeah.
So my idea for the demons was basically to draw a muscular humanoid creature that was all black with just giant razor teeth and multiple eyes on their head. So it's like they're prominent feature,
4 eyes, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
Their prominent feature is just teeth. That's their prominent feature. Other than that, it's teeth and muscles. And that in the original, in the first few issues, they're pretty much the same. You just get like some that are a little bit stockier, some that are taller and longer, elongated, some that are giant. But as I went farther and farther in the series, I realized that I really was missing out on a character design opportunity in that, for instance, my comic book reading tastes are pretty wide, from like Bone to Love and Rockets to like Saga. I'm kind of all over the map. I'm a comic books omnivore.
I love that phrase. That's awesome.
But I realized, like, one of the books, a book that I really liked, and I was trying, I think I was referencing the spirit of the innovation of it, was Guy Davis's The Marquis. And in that book, Guy Davis does great creature design. There's tons of monsters in BPRD, but The Marquis is a black and white book where a man is fighting and hunting demons, but he doesn't know whether he's actually insane and hallucinating all of it, and he's actually murdering real people, or the demons are real. But his creature design in that book, if you haven't read it, it's so innovative. I mean, you can see why someone like Guillermo del Toro would hire him to do character designs for his movies, because there's just these amazing, endless variety of weird, twisted monsters. And so as I got deeper and deeper into Morningstar, I started varying them up. And besides just having some that were more quadruped, and I started adding multiple arms and having ones where they've got like more heads coming out. And I just realized I was missing out on, as much as I wanted to make the character design simple, I was missing out on an opportunity. And I thought, you know what? I should just start exploring that. So that the creature designs get a little bit crazier as the series goes on.
Okay. Now, here, Lucifer has a cutlass, actually. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. Oh, well, there he is right there with it. Was that, that's a very unique blade. Kind of like, what was the thought process of giving him the cutlass?
In anticipation of this, I brought one of my reference tools. When I'm doing character design, this book almost never leaves my side. I keep it on my bookshelf. It's one of the Dorling Kinserly DK books. They've got a wide variety of them, and there's a companion book to this. This one's called Warrior. There's a companion book called Weapons. But I think what I was looking for will be in this volume, which is it's a history book, but it goes through visual reference of warriors in different periods.
Okay.
And what I was looking for, let me see here. It says Union soldiers. But what I was looking for was like early American swords. And they've got swords from British soldiers here, so it doesn't. I can't actually see the. Might be too much glare, but one of the things that's in this book, I was going back to like Civil War era soldiers and looking at the swords that they carried, and I was going for that, like sort of like Union soldiers' weapons. So that was the inspiration there.
Okay.
We're just trying to tie it all into the Western theme.
All right. Hey, Dominic, she says that that book was in her elementary school library.
Oh, cool. That's a. I'm glad they had the wisdom to give you some good research material. I love that.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, so shall we actually get on with? This is what I'm really excited about. You're going to design Hades.
I am up for it. Yeah.
So cool. Okay.
Now, first, I have a question.
Yes.
Right now, it sounds like you guys are developing the characters.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the actual personality of the characters have been developed yet in terms of writing down their personality types or that? Has that been fleshed out at all?
As far as the gods themselves, nope. It's all open. We have fleshed out quite a bit of the 3 main astronauts. But as far as the deities themselves, we were kind of leaning more towards letting the artists take the lead on it versus just kind of showing the different aspects of the different ways you can approach it. So
well, the reason why I ask is because my process for designing characters is inside out. I really try to either try to make the outward design reflect their inner personality, or I will intentionally make their outward appearance contrast their personality. So that's one of the things that I go for. And the reason why I ask is because if I've got who's the angry one, who's the hothead, who's the one who's sulky, who's the snarky one, I also we'll make it up as we go along. But in general, my process is more holistic. I tend to design characters in contrast with each other. So I think about their personalities. I think about the relationships. I think about the fact that if you've got 3 astronauts, are these astronauts going to gravitate towards a particular deity or group of deities? Or is one person going to say, well, I'm more on Poseidon's side. I'm more with Hades. Well, I want to hang out with Zeus. I'm down with Mercury. I will also try to think about the relationships. To me, creating a character just out of the void and just giving them a cool look, I can do that. But I always feel for me, the actual essence of who the character is and how they're going to interact with others is probably more important than how they end up looking physically at the end.
Okay. Dominic asked real quick, why do you have half a glove on your hand?
Oh, this is because I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. No. No, it's a smudge guard because I'm drawing on an iPad, and the oils on your hand will get on the screen. And if you draw on any digital tablet, you'll find just over time you're constantly having to wipe it down, and it gets a little. I don't want to say it gets greasy, but it gets a little greasy. So this glove is just to keep the smear and the natural oils in your skin off of the screen. That's all it's for.
I've noticed that when I'm drawing on my iPad, if I'm not wearing that, my fingers will start. It'll, zoom in on a section or something just because my hand's resting there, it'll think that's an eraser, and I'll be drawing over here and erasing over here, and so.
Yeah, it does actually. It makes a difference with that too. I do find sometimes I'll be drawing on the couch and I don't have the glove and I don't feel going up and getting it, and it messes with my my flow a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what then? Hell, let's get into it.
So do you want to know more about the characters, the individual astronauts, and we can have the chat chime in on some personality traits with Hades? Or do you want to just
let's stick with Hades. Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, you want me to share your screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Throw it up there.
All right. Here is Procreate on the iPad Pro. Now, one thing I love about Procreate is it's a one-time fee. It's what is it, $14 or something like that?
I honestly thought it was less than that. It's a great deal. I love it. I'm super happy with it. I know there's multiple programs out there, and I have bought a few others just to kind of test them out and see what I like. But yeah, just for the price and the functionality, it's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
So when I first start, for me, I like to. I'm a big thumbnailer. I actually like to think, like, let's say that there's multiple Hades. Like, we live in a world where Hades doesn't exist yet, and I want to have 3 different guys. Let's say I've got. Let me bring that down a little bit more.
3 different guys, huh?
Well, for instance, I could make a very tall Hades. Let's say I got a stick figure here.
Mm-hmm.
I could have a very tall Hades. I could have. Erase this. Kind of an average-sized Hades. And I could have, let's say, a short Hades. Let's go even shorter than that. Let's make him maybe even shorter than Wolverine. Kind of a short, stocky Hades. Now, the first thing I will tell you is that if I were to make, I could do a Hades that's a kind of a sexy Lady Death type woman, but I mean, Lady Death already exists. Mm-hmm. Kate Blanchett is Hela in the Thor movies. That also exists. I could do a very large, kind of menacing. Or actually, you know what? I could do like a large, skinny, kind of a skeletal Hades.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think that in, what was it, in Hercules, his son was Phobos, so his son was Fear. Mm-hmm. You could even do a child as as Hades, which, to be honest, the idea of Hades as a kid sounds really, really cool.
That is very unique, yeah.
But I was already leaning towards making him, like, as I just started doing these sketches, I was leaning towards making him an old man. Like, I was thinking, you don't see old men kind of thrown front and center in comics that often.
True. Very true.
So right now, when I start, I usually just start with trying to figure out what is my silhouette? What is my shape language for this character? What's the look and feel for him? And in just kind of looking at these, I don't really necessarily, it's really intuitive at the start. When it comes to character design, it's intuitive. And I think that this kind of, this guy actually almost looks like a young adult, almost like a Ben 10 type character. And I'm not sure what the people in the chat are thinking, but my first instinct is to combine the old man with the child, to almost have it where it's like he's an old man, but he's wearing a child's face.
Oh, weird. That sounds creepy.
Exactly. And I mean, creepy is kind of what I do. And the thing about it is that I could, with that look, I'm thinking, what if we give him the kind of frail body of an old man, mm-hmm. and maybe protruding bones, but he's got that young childlike face, and it's over, like, maybe we even have it like a skeleton. Maybe it's like a skeleton skull-like face, but he's got a child's healthy young face kind of maybe riveted to it or just strapped to it. I haven't figured out how it's attached yet. I'm just spitballing here.
Okay. We have Toxic on the chat that says, why not make one a girl?
You know what? Let's make it a young woman. Maybe Hades will be an old woman. We could just, swap genders. Just go. Or are you saying maybe one of the faces is an old man, one of the faces is an old woman? I mean, we could do that. You know what? That gives us the best of both worlds. The face can be a beautiful young, not beautiful, because I actually kind of want to lean more into something that's creepy as opposed to sexy. But it could be like a very cute young woman with like a hideous old man's face underneath.
Okay.
Or we could do it where it could be a boy with an old woman's face underneath. But I think the older face, it might be harder to necessarily make it feel female, because I think as we get into, like, when we get into older ancient creatures with sunken features, it might be harder to really tell, like, is that even a guy or a woman? And maybe it becomes less important. So I'm thinking, all right, let's that's
Well, in the original what is it, Greek mythology, he did marry Persephone. So, you know.
Well, you know what? Maybe it's a LGBTQ marriage. Maybe it's fine that she's a woman. In fact, that makes it a little bit creepier. That this old creature with a beautiful young woman's face, a beautiful young girl's face, marries this woman and traps her in the underworld.
All right. So Dominic says this is her first time ever witnessing the actual drawing process. Then she goes to state that she can't draw. Dominic, don't ever say crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great drawing tutorials. Actually, if you watch a lot of Jeremy's channels on YouTube, he goes through this whole process a lot. So I've actually learned quite a few little tricks, especially about like pacing the comics from Jeremy's YouTube channel. So don't say you can't draw. We'll have some fun with you. Come on.
You know, I wish I could remember who the artist was who said it. I want to say it was Camila D'Erico, but there was an artist I remember. Hang on, I'm trying to get this. For some reason, that keystroke to get it clear the whole layer, that never seems to work for me. I don't know why. There was some artist I heard an interview saying that people often talk about, they ask artists, when did you start to draw? And she said, the real question is, when did you stop? Because everyone draws when they're a little kid, everyone has fun and just makes stuff up, and they're really creative and free. And it's only when we get older that people seem to lose that freedom and that willingness to just express yourself on the paper. So, if you say you can't draw, you know what? You can draw. I mean, right now I'm doing all this with stick figures. And yes, I'm going to go in and refine it and add more detail, and I'm going to sculpt and shape. Those are things you can learn. But what you can't teach is imagination. So if you've got imagination, it's kind of fun, doodle, make interesting stuff, have fun with whatever you are able to do. Because I actually find, like, yes, the time it takes to learn the technical aspects of drawing and draftsmanship, that does take a lot of time. But if you just simply look at it as work, it's harder to get started. Whereas if you are drawing because you just simply take joy in making pictures and images, that will carry you through all of what one would consider the hard work. So find the joy in the creative process. That's what I recommend.
So this right here, what you're doing it's got to be my absolute favorite part of this whole process is when you can actually start to see some individual pieces, and it actually starts to look like a face, not just, your circles and your kind of guidelines and stuff like that. I love this stage. But back over on chat, Jared says, old man on one side, woman on the other, both riveted on. Toxic replies, oh my God, that's creepy, Jared. And then Jared, creepy but cool. And of course, he has to do his whole laugh.
Well, what do you think? Because I think the idea of having the face, to me, having a face completely strapped on is probably creepier. But I can try it with, you know what? There's no reason why I can't do. You know what? My character does. This is the interesting thing. Part of this is that you've got different creators on showing their process. My process is not to pick one or the other. So my process usually is I hear like multiple ideas or I see different visions. I sketch out all of those different possibilities. So why don't I try and sketch this one a little quicker and then do another sketch right next to it of the half face? Because for me, my actual process is it's a process of whittling down. It's not, oh, I'm trying to come up with a brilliant design out of my head. It's every idea that I get, I just do another sketch and I just keep going through until I've got a pile of sketches and I see what I like. So,
see, my process is I start drawing and then I'm like, holy crap, this is going to take too long. So that's when I have to start making the tough calls. So for me, it's all about time, but not as much creativity. I like your process a lot better.
well, I mean, for me, the part of that is that the thumbnailing really is my favorite part of the process. So for me, just being able to sit and explore different versions of the same idea over and over again, I'm like, that I can do that all day. And I think, even though I don't want to get too caught up in drawing the details. By the way, as a side note, I'm actually drawing. I'm not drawing on low with my brush set on gray. Part of my particular process is what I like to do is I'm actually drawing with black, but I just set the entire layer at like 20% opacity, so that I can never get too dark or too detailed. Actually, a lot of times I'll do it with 10% opacity. I just set the layer there, so I can't get too detailed or too dark right away, and it helps keep me loose. And then when I want to refine it, I'll put another layer on top that's at 20% opacity. And if that requires refinement, then I'll do a layer on top that's at 40 or 50% opacity. And as the lines get darker, I get a little bit more accurate with it. But one thing that I look at this character and I see, I kind of want to give them a youthful face, but blackened teeth.
Huh.
I really like that idea of juxtaposition, that whole idea of just taking ideas that seem like they really shouldn't go together and just putting them on. Now, I'm trying to figure out whether this character should have some sort of headpiece, because I want to have, I think even, I'm trying to decide whether this has flesh that's stripped away, almost like a Hellraiser feeling. I don't want it to feel like that. I just want him to feel old. So I'm actually thinking, how do I put all these wrinkles in there? So let me get in here and just wrinkled skin and folds. Drag these ears a little bit.
Oh, that is cool. It's really coming alive.
And I'm going to try and, let's see, let's just have some hair coming down. It's starting to look like a Junji Ito sketch.
I was thinking it kind of reminds me almost of like just with the hair, Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Just strands.
No, I totally see that. Right now, I think that Hades is skewing far more into the creepy and not into the cute enough. So just looking at that, I'm thinking, well, let me round out the cheeks a little bit more. Because I think the cuter we can make her, the creepier she'll be. He, she, they. The creepier they will be.
Okay.
You've got your first transgender character in the series. So let me... The next step, I'm going to do another... Let me just make this collar area just feel bony, just because that will make me feel a little bit more like... One last thing, and I don't know how this will come out, but I'm shrinking it a little bit. And let's go ahead and bump up the opacity a little bit darker. One thing I want to add is some sort of crown. And the first thing that I'm thinking in this crown is to make it, I want it to be a skull. I want the crown to be a skull. Just because, again, thinking from the inside out, it's Hades. So then the question becomes, how do you make a crown out of a skull? It's already spherical. I don't know if it has the shape that we think of, the tiara-esque shape that we think of when we think of a crown. So what I'm trying to do here is see if I can take, again, being big on reference, I usually have, I've got a life-size skull that I keep around for reference to look at. Again, I went from not using much reference at all to trying to constantly have stuff to look at and try and figure out what I want to say and how I want it to feel. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm making like the high point of the crown, this arch of the bridge of the nose, but then have the sides come out.
Oh, so I see what you're doing. So it's actually laying back on
yes
their head. Okay.
So
Jared asks, Jared asks, does the mask have its own personality since you call it a they?
That's a good question. I think that it does. I would like to think that they don't have their own separate personality. There's someone who is gender fluid. So it's not like they argue and they have different sides. It's more that they're much in the way that like some days you're in a good mood, some days you're in a bad mood. Some days Hades expresses a masculine side, some days Hades expresses a feminine side.
Okay. Joe says best Hades ever. And, Jared once again says from the nose up. Dominic says, could you crack the jaw out 180 degrees to make it a crown?
You mean putting the jaw so it's coming up?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure exactly kind of what that would look like.
Well, I'll tell you, as opposed to making the jaw come up, what I actually am imagining now that they said that is actually having the jaw come down almost like the frills of royalty.
Oh, okay.
You have the jaw come down around here.
So it's basically just disconnected, and you put the top of the head up here and then the jaw down. Okay.
Yeah. And again, these are, this is an early first pass, so this could go through a lot of revisions and refinement. I think that, like, for instance, in a cleanup, the first thing I would do with this is I would start with the whole outer skull and try to get the sense that the head is almost emerging out of the skull, as if the skull were, let's say it's twice the size of a normal human skull, and it's like you're almost wearing the whole skull as a armor / helmeted piece. Kind of like, imagine like an astronaut putting on a helmet, which is interesting because this could tie into the astronauts.
Yeah.
And maybe
so this could actually be the skull of like a Titan or something like that, where it's so much larger. Okay.
Exactly. But the idea of them wearing the entire head and jaw as some sort of armor. Like, I'll tell you, if we have time for me to come back and revise and do a pass over this, I would come up and I would probably make the eyes sit even further back, almost like they're pointing straight up. But people mentioned the idea of the face split in half. So let me do another quick sketch and try and take a look at that.
So I do have a question about this particular sketch. I noticed that just on the character designs, you're changing the line weight, from a lot skinnier around the face. Then when you get to the skull, it's a lot thicker line. What kind of thought process is that?
Generally speaking, what I like to do, and this is something I learned from my friend Carl Altstetter. He's a comic book creator, and one of the things he taught me was putting a holding line around figures. And the holding line really is just the silhouette. Mm-hmm. And it still means that the lines that are closer to light are lighter, and the lines that are facing away from light are thicker. Mm-hmm. But the idea of giving the character a whole strong silhouette that kind of holds them together, it just sort of unifies the figure. Now, in terms of making the lines that are the skull thicker, that is a function of just trying to. I didn't change the thickness on the pencil I'm using, on the pen I'm using, until I did that little that line right there at the end, the holding line. Mm-hmm. Before that was just me increasing pressure, because there's a lot of very loose, sketchy lines in this early phase. And I kind of felt like, why not? I wanted to make sure that as I fleshed out that skull, I sort of helped, I wanted to make it read a little bit more. And if I used the same level of line weights on the early part as I did on the on that skull, it would have ended up, it just would have all mushed together. So that was more of just trying to clarify the shape and the look and the design. And I'll tell you one thing that I am still not 100% happy with. Let me flip back to this layer. The one thing I'm not happy with, and I think this is actually a time for me to switch to a low opacity brush, make this a little bit wider, is the fact that I don't feel like there's a separation between the old face's hair. Like, I don't think we get that sense of it separating, that there's old skin here. Mm-hmm. And I definitely feel like just adding a little bit of tone in there might help separate and give you the sense that there's white hair kind of cutting through and cutting over the front. But it still needs some refinement. It could be something where the hair ends up all coming, maybe it's all old skin in here all the way back, and then maybe there's a little bit of hair coming out of the side, and then there's white hair. You make this a little bit bigger. White hair kind of coming out from behind the open skull and coming across the teeth. Put that back up to full opacity. Something maybe like that. But also, I'm not refining this as much as I want to, only because I want to move on to drawing that second version. But I feel like this hair should be stringy. It should feel like a white-haired version of The Grudge.
Oh.
As long as we're really talking Junji Ito inspiration.
Yeah, completely creepy on us, huh?
Well, you gotta lean into your. There's two things. You can either lean away from your influences and say, I'm gonna try and go completely different, or you can lean into them and say, this character is very much, the more I'm drawing it, the more I'm seeing a Junji Ito type feel to it. And the stringy white hair is the thing that to me is selling it. I think the only other thing I want to do in here is maybe put in some thicker lines to try and really play up this sense of like the weathered skin. Right now, it looks more like muscle fibers to me than weathered older skin. So if I were doing like a refined cleanup on it, one of the things I'd start doing is probably adding like liver spots.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I try to think of all aspects of the character when you're designing a character. It's a very holistic process for me. It's not just making a thing that looks cool. And, I'd like to think that the aspects I'm putting in are going to influence how the character is written. But for
I
me,
guarantee it will be.
yeah.
I never thought about like the liver spots and everything. I mean, that just to me signifies like this man is on his last legs, and you know, being in charge of the underworld, you are surrounded by death. So it works. It really works.
You know, and I'll tell you, the personality I'm starting to see is that when you mention that they're surrounded by death, I almost imagine like somebody who is snarky and a little bit playfully grumpy, like they're never going to die, and they're kind of already bored with existence. But since they're a god, they can't die. They can't opt out. So they're just sort of like imagine a really, really creepy character with Alan Ruckman's personality. Alan Rickman.
Yeah. What was it?
Imagine Snape as a transgender preteen girl. That's Hades. I've given you Hades' personality.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I love it. That is probably the most unique take I think I've ever heard on any character.
Well, I mean, hey, for me, I can't help but I feel like in order to go further and flesh the character out, whoops, let me undo that. What just happened there? Oh, there you go. What I meant to do was clear this layer on the bottom. Not fill it. I meant to clear it. So I can come in here and sketch out the two-faced version. This one, I'm just going to do it as a straight on shot so we can kind of look at both faces. But yeah, for me, character design, the inside to me, because what I find interesting is that human beings have a broad spectrum of personalities, proclivities, things that they love, that they hate, you know, their tastes, their fears. The inner life to me is what makes the character. And you can take a character that is just evil and horrific and has very like obscene taste, like just something you would find horrible. And you can take that character and put them in an old man's body, and it's one type of personality. You can put it in an attractive supermodel's body. That's another character. You can put it in like a middle-aged politician. That's another body. You can put it in, you know, you can take all those types of personalities and put them in different bodies. So for me, it comes back to trying to bring the inside out. Like, have you ever seen the movie The Killer Inside Me?
Oh,
Casey Affleck.
yes. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it's good. Real dark. Super dark.
A little bit, yeah.
But see, what's interesting about that, for viewers, it's the story of a sheriff of a small town who you slowly find out is a serial killer. And what makes him so creepy is that he projects so much of an outward appearance that's so different than who he is on the inside. You know, he very much seems like a slow-witted, like not even Andy from Mayberry, but like Barney Fife, like kind of like a clumsy, goofball-y sheriff. But he is this calculating, sinister predator. And it's probably like one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen him in. Casey Affleck's just a great actor. But that's one of those where it's like, oh, wow, it's so dark.
That scene where he was beating, what was her name? Jessica Alba.
Oh, yeah.
Weird. Like, it's so creepy to see because I still remember him from, what is it, Ocean's 11. And then all of a sudden, here's this dark role. So I think that made it extra creepy.
No, it definitely did. Now, the nice thing for me about character design is also, as I'm doing variations, I can use that opportunity to refine concepts from the first one. So I'm making this head a little bit smaller, but that's so I can sit here, look at this skull straight on, and say, what does it look like to have a giant skull on top of your skull? You know? I'm trying to remember. Did Thulsa Doom in Conan have a skull head, or am I thinking of the villain from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
Ooh, it was, I believe, Temple of Doom. I just looked up Tulsa Doom on James Earl Jones' character on Conan, and I've not seen any pictures of him with a. It was more of a mask that he had. Let me share my screen real quick while I'm on the images.
Go for it.
So as you can see, it's just more of like a metal mask with two snakes coming out of the side.
Okay. See, I knew he had an interesting headdress.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see. Now, I started by trying to make the skull feel more attached, but as I'm drawing this face here, I feel like I kind of want to get in the neck. Now, first off, I see this character having a perpetual hunch. So me sketching them with their head upright is purely a tool of exploration and trying to feel where the parts are going. But I kind of want to get the a little bit of the shoulder in here so I can get that sense of how I see that skull wrapping around, because I almost see the skull like the jaw. All
right. Real quick, while you're doing that, just to kind of give everybody a reminder, what we're doing right now is we're actually designing Hades for the new comic that we're creating, so which we still need a name for. So everybody chime in on the chat what you think the name of the comic would be. As of right now, the story is 3 astronauts are working towards kind of faster than light travel, basically, and end up in a new kind of dimension where deities are real. And one of the first group we run into is, of course, the Greek deities. Last week with Joe Spicer, we designed Poseidon. This week with Jeremy, we're designing Hades, as you can see, and it is awesome to look at. It's so awesome. I love the fact that it actually is nothing like the Poseidon that we did last week. I mean, it has its own unique feel to it. It works so well for this world that you're creating with the underworld, and it's so awesome.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's part of that is just you asked 2 different artists to design. I mean, how you draw 2 different artists to draw Wolverine, you're going to get 2 very different looks. I think that when it comes to making a new character, everyone's going to come at it with a different approach. But the nice thing here is just being able to go and explore, move some pieces around, be like, shift this like that.
Now, the whole intent of this series is to actually teach people how to create their own comic from the ground up. And as of right now, if you're able to jump in on chat and maybe make a suggestion and, create something of your own, you will be listed as a creator in this comic. So, oh, I love that. It's just really starting to take shape.
Well, what's funny is as I was doing this, I'm sitting here and I'm kind of thinking, I want to just do a little thumbnail off to the side. And I'm just curious what happens if I just draw. Hang on, I have to move this over a little bit more, because I'm curious what happens if I just have a skull facing almost straight up, with a broken jaw facing down. Because I may draw a really, really cool front view and be like, oh, that's awesome. Then I realize, oh, wait, I can't draw this character from any other angle. So,
I've done that. I have actually done that.
Well, I mean, that's why for me, I know we don't necessarily have the time to do that, but the little sketch that I'm doing right now, my natural character design process is for me to just draw dozens, not just 10 or 12, but I may do like 20 or 30 sketches like this, where it's just a little sketch and just working out different possibilities. Now, this is interesting. The idea of using the teeth as something going across the brow, or maybe going across up just before, because before I had the cheekbones kind of resting on the brow line, but let's say the face is in here. And then again, that implying that there is a, you know what, interestingly enough, I feel like the liver spots give more of the sense of age than the wrinkles do. And maybe having those coming down the neck. Now, the skull is a bit misshapen because it really doesn't go back as far as it should.
Well, it's got to be broken anyway in order to...
Yeah. True, very true. I think I can bump the opacity on this layer up a little bit just so I can... Yeah, that's the thing. As I start to refine, I kind of like to get a little bit darker. Let's see here.
Dominic says, just tossing this idea out there for a title. Enter Demi Mishap. Demi, like demigods and stuff. That's a good one. Toxic says, or time jump. Time jump too far. And he's asking if this is kind of like Lost in Space with Gods. Now that you make that reference, it does have a little bit of that feel to it, which is something we're going to have to work extra hard to avoid, because we don't want that lawsuit on our hands.
Well, does Lost in Space have any gods?
No, but they do have the whole, concept of getting lost in space. I mean, it is there in the title.
Well, what was it? Was it Star Trek Voyager, where they are shot to the end of the universe, have to find their way back?
Yes.
And Battlestar Galactica.
I really, really loved that new series on Sci-Fi with the Battlestar. The updated one with
Caprica, or just the reboot in general?
The reboot in general.
Mm-hmm.
So Caprica was actually a spin-off of that, the reboot. So
yes.
Okay.
Good buddy of mine actually was a character, was one of the animators who animated the Cylons on that show.
Really?
Yeah. He's a fellow comic creator.
Cool. All right.
My buddy Jesse Tovis.
Huh.
So shout outs to Jesse if he's watching.
So I got to ask you, if you were to cast this character in a movie, who would play your version of Hades?
Well, the problem is I'm not that up on young actresses, and I feel like what would make it really creepy is to have somebody who really is like a teenager.
Okay.
Because at first, when I'm thinking about this, I'm kind of seeing someone like Haley Stanfield from she's playing Emily Dickinson right now in Dickinson on Apple Plus. But I mean, she was in that last. I think she was in the Bumblebee movie, and but mainly True Grit is the thing I think of when I think of her. Like she was amazing in that. But another actor. Now, what's sad for this one is I don't remember the actress's name. But have you seen the show on Netflix, Black AF?
I haven't watched that one. Let me look it up real quick.
Well, it's from the creator of Blackish and Grownish and Mixish. And so all the other shows he does, it's all ish. And so this one is Black AF, you know. Like instead of ish, it's like hardcore. And I told my brother about it, and he watched the first episode, and basically he said, yeah, it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm through the lens of Blackish, because it's the creator Kenya Barris plays himself.
Really?
And it's about the same way that Blackish explores different ideas of Black identity, like what happens when you're somebody who struggles to get out of the hood. You have these kids now that are growing up privileged. You know, they're growing up in a family where the parents are making good money, they're well educated, and then it's like, but they might be getting that whole question of what does it mean to be Black? Like, what happens if you're raised in a Black educated family, go to a good school, you're interested in D&D, and you've got kids going to like parties with you know, doing stuff that white kids do. And so Blackish kind of touches on those things. Black AF touches on it with a much more sarcastic and vulgar tone, and they definitely paint themselves as, in the same way that the parents in Blackish are really good parents and raising their kids with good values, they're playing up the fact of like, they're just garbage parents. Like they're just horrible. Really? They're it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but with Blackish. Like they're horrible parents. It's hilarious. It's a great show. But that's a very, very long answer to the fact that they've got like 5 kids, and there's 3 daughters that are older, and then they've got 2 younger boys. And the youngest daughter is just mean. She's mean, and she's surly.
Okay.
And she doesn't talk that much, but she can wither you with just a look. And that girl is who I would cast as Hades.
Okay. Dominic says, wouldn't it be terrifying if Jojo, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, played this character?
Yeah, Jojo Siwa. The only reason why I know her is because I work in the toy industry, and she has like a show on Nickelodeon. She's kind of like another like another Hillary Duff, that kind of thing. Like she's a child singer, pop culture icon. That's her.
Yeah, I just looked her up on Google, and I'm kind of wishing I hadn't. Okay.
Well, you know what? I'm sure she's a lovely person. I don't know her, never met her, haven't worked on any products for her brand. But
yeah, well, just a very 90s feel to it.
Yeah. Very much a sense of like bringing back that 90s pop star look.
Yeah, I'm just having PTSD flashbacks of the 90s, and just the style of everything, and that is that should never come back. Please, no.
Well, hey, she's got a big fan base, so it's back.
All right, I'm just checking out your drawing. Had to pull myself away from that from Google for a minute.
You were getting sucked into the Siwa pit.
Yeah. So right now you're adding the teeth to it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the idea here.
Yeah.
yeah, now I can sort of, as I'm doing this new version, I can still explore some of the ideas from the previous. Now, the only thing, well, and also I was going to say, at first I was like, you don't really see the space where I can make that distinction I was talking about with the liver spots, but that's that, you know, but the fact that in this version the face is split in half, you know, the liver spots is going to be all on that version of the face. So, you know, let me start with doing some sunken eyes here.
So that style of like sunken eyes just kind of reminds me of like the gorillas.
Oh yeah,
I love that art style.
Yeah, Jamie Hewlett is. I don't necessarily cite him as an influence, but he's somebody whose art I love. Like I used to read his stuff. I don't know if it was before he started working on Tank Girl, but he used to do this British magazine called Deadline. He published it, and it was the first time I saw some of. It was his work. Also, Steve Dillon, you know, the late great Steve Dillon of Preacher fame. I saw that was the first time I saw his work. And I want to say that it wasn't all British creators, because I think I saw some of Evan Dorkin's early work in that magazine too, but I could be making that last one up. But it was almost like a British Shonen Jump. And yeah, so, but you know, the point being is that Jamie Hewlett's work is you know, just, it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like he's one of those people. For me, I end up putting, I think, way too many lines into stuff, and it's not like I'm trying to be detailed, or I think the more detail I put in there, the better. I think it's just I keep trying to get closer and closer to the thing I'm looking for, trying to describe, and as I do that, I end up putting more and more lines in. But as a personal preference, I would much rather, what I'm striving to achieve is eventually getting to be like Alex Toth, where I'm putting down just what I need to tell the story and not a single line more.
That is hard to do.
As you well know, I was going to ask you, like how you feel, like in your art, how do you, style-wise, how are you more detailed, less detailed?
I am personally probably more detailed. I go almost overboard, and then I'm like, well, crap, how do I, take half of this out? So I tend to overthink everything, and I can't just add the right amount. Like it's impossible for me.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, for me, a lot of my process is doing the rough sketches like this, and then trying to strip away as much as I can and just say, what is the bare bones that I need? Now, I'll tell you, again, even though I just complained about putting detail in, I'm going to come in a second and add a bunch of those liver spots. But for now, I'm just trying to stretch the skin out, almost like Eddie from Iron Maiden. Like just going for that
okay,
that leathery, drawn skin. And now the question is, how many liver spots is too many? Because I'm starting to put them in there, and I know that this is one of those things where it'd be real easy to go like way overboard.
I guess that's the great part about Procreate. You could just do the 2-finger tap. So
yeah. I mean, it's so funny because as I've been doing, like, I've only been drawing on the iPad for less than a year. So the first thing I did was I started doing a bunch of art prints just as an excuse to kind of practice and get my sea legs under me. I did this series that were like nightmarish versions of Alice in Wonderland characters. Like they all sort of look like variations of Pennywise from It.
Okay.
And,
I think I saw those on your Instagram.
Yeah. I was very happy with how those came out. For my first, they weren't fully done on Procreate; they were just colored on Procreate. I still did like ink drawings originally, But it was my first thing of just getting a sense of what the thing can do and getting comfortable with it before diving into using it for comic work. And by the time I was done, I was like, oh yeah, I very much could switch to doing layouts on this. And now that I'm almost done with layouts in the final issue, I'm like, yeah, my next comic can be digital. And it's not, yeah, it's just the fact that it's so much easier to finish a whole comic. Like I actually find the process of drawing with brush and ink more pleasurable. I like the feeling of them on the page, but just the level of efficiency that comes with this tool is it's hard to deny. Very hard to deny.
Have you tried using that what is it called? Paper-like screen protector?
I have not, and my reason for doing it is I only know this as rumor. I have not tried it and tested it out myself, but I have heard that the same way that the nib of a Wacom nibs, you have to change those every few years as you grind them down as you're working. I've heard that because they've got like a light tooth to them to feel like a paper, they slowly will fan down your stylus. And getting a new iPen is a lot more expensive than getting a new Wacom nib.
Well, here's the thing though, with those the Apple pencils, you can actually just replace the nib for, let me see, I bought 3 for like $2 on Amazon.
These little tips?
Yeah.
For the Apple Pencil.
Yeah.
All right, well then hell, maybe I should get the paper cover. So wait, so do you so obviously you use the paper cover, you like it?
It took a little getting used to. There was a little bit of a learning curve, like all of a sudden going from drawing on just straight glass to that kind of rougher texture like pencil or like paper. It was a little weird. But overall, I really do enjoy it. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's maybe I should really look into that.
All right. Dominic says this will be the last title I suggest. I feel like I'm talking too much. Dominic, you're not talking too much. Get in here. Join us on the chat. Chime in on everything.
Talk more. Ask more questions. We love the comments.
Binary Odyssey. I like that. That really that kind of speaks to me. I like that. I'm definitely going to have to write that down. And oh yeah, I really like that. All right, Shot in the Dark for the title. Demigods, a shot into space. Like that too. So what we're going to do is let me see. Yep, by next week, we're going to actually have everything laid out on Facebook, and we're going to let you guys vote on what you think the title should be. So chime in now. We're jotting everything down, and I'll be re-reviewing all of these videos to make sure we get every single title. And then we'll put it on Facebook for a vote.
So I'm trying to round this face out a little bit more because the only problem I have is that it doesn't feel as childlike as I want it to. Still skewing a little bit more like sexy girl than it is, And the fact that I have her with a little bit of a smile is meant to be unsettling.
It kind of is. I was just looking at that.
And the fact that I've got this, I'm going to bring the eyelid down even further. And the reason for that is because I'm going to give the other eye, I'm going to make it that same thing where it's the black eye with the white pupils. But the fact that it's going to be open and very bright, wide-eyed. I like to think about contrast in general, and in every phase of it. And I think sometimes be able to have the opportunity to give character very unique eyes is a special thing, because for the most part, we all got 2 eyes, and it's really just a matter of, well, do you have a unique eye color or something? But the idea of being able to really have eyes that are windows to the soul, they're expressing something unique and different. I realize I can push that contrast a little bit more by making this eye even more of a heavy lid.
Oh, yeah.
And then making these eyes almost like the childlike wonder, like a Peter Pan type, like super wide and playful almost. And just thinking about how that would contrast with the personality. Well, hell, I can just make it easy on myself, just fill this in and just draw the pupil in or erase it out of there. Let's see here. A little bit more wide-eyed, just a little bit. And then maybe raise this up a little bit more open.
So Dominic asks, how would you attempt to design like an overweight character?
I would probably start with shapes. So let me create a new layer real quick and turn these two off. Let's move this to the top here. So for an overweight character, I would start with just simply, are they overweight and round? Are they sort of blocky? And even though my style is not necessarily more of an animation style, I'm not really a cartoony artist. But when I start at this primitive level, I really am trying to build, even if there's someone who's going to be more of an illustrated, traditional comic book looky feel, I'm trying to use the types of exaggerations you would do if you were designing a cartoon character.
Okay.
So let's say a cone. I don't see a lot of cone-shaped characters. And because I like weird contrast, I like the idea of, let's say you've got somebody who is overweight, but give them like tiny stick legs.
Dominic says like overweight, but still beautiful and stuff.
Oh, that's very different. Well, see, first off, when you say overweight but beautiful, I would have phrased that as curvy, and for me, that's just a matter of I study figure drawing classes. I take classes at this place in California called the Animation Guild, or at least I have up until COVID. But the instructor that I studied with, Carl Ganas, he actually recently opened an online school, so he's teaching people virtually. And I'm going to be taking classes over there in the fall. But
oh wow,
because
I wrote a blog post about all that stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I've been spending a number of years, probably a decade now, taking life drawing classes, looking at real life human models. My instinct when I'm drawing women isn't necessarily to go to these super thin stick legs with big boob characters that, sometimes comic books have a bad rap for that. And I definitely think that as a majority, comic books have become more progressive in terms of including and being more inclusive of a wide variety of body types. But just by virtue of spending time drawing real women of a variety of body types, my first instinct is I usually start with let me bring the opacity down just a little bit so I can.
All right. Let me see. Before we get a little further into it, Toxa says, as always, guys, it's been a pleasure, but it's 2:30 in the morning here in the UK. Yeah, ever since the DC fandom, he's been jumping on our channel, and yeah, always pleasure to have you. So I'll see you later, Toxic. Jared says later, Toxic, and Jeremy, please keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Toxic. So here's the thing: regardless of whether someone is thin, average build, or overweight, we all pretty much have the same skeleton. Some people will have a stockier build. Some people will have a thinner build. Some people's muscles might be not muscles, their bones might be a little thicker, but the actual basic skeleton is the same. So what I start with is just trying to get down a stick figure. And it's a stick figure with a block body and a block head, but it's a stick figure. And then from there, I start saying, well, all right, women tend to carry their weight more in their hips and backside. Men tend to carry it more in our front, in our bellies. So I would start by just sort of moving the hips out a little bit wider, maybe giving her some really curvy hips. And then just letting the curves slowly come down. Like I would still probably give her, traditional sized ankles. Maybe they could be thick ankles, but let it go from like really thick at the top where the thighs are, down to just little dainty feet, and then doing the same with the other thigh. So for me, I would start by giving her a nice thick base, and then when it comes to the upper body, this is one of those places where it's like, a lot of times if you see a character that has large breasts, they have like an impossibly thin waist, an impossibly, thin upper body structure. Whereas usually women who naturally have large breasts, they've got broader shoulders and they've got the strength to carry that, because otherwise it's like, even women with broad shoulders, a lot of them will develop back problems. It's like, women will sometimes get breast reductions. So I would probably push her shoulders a little wider and broader than I would normally do for a female character. But
Pixel says, see you folks. So see you, Pixel.
Should we be wrapping this up soon? Because I realize as people are dropping off, I might be just going way too long with the jawing.
Oh no, it's 2:00 in the morning in the UK where they're where Toxic is watching. I don't know about Pixel, but no, I could do this all day. Just sit here and watch. All right, so back to what you were saying about like the shoulders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Now this again is personal choice, because you could do a character that is very curvy, has broad hips, and still maybe has narrow shoulders. So that's one of the things you want to think about. Is I'm just going by right now what I tend to observe, like if I'm working from a live model. That said, going for the idea of taking somebody who is, a thicker build, but still giving them not a tiny waist, but giving them tiny shoulders or narrower shoulders, that could be an interesting look to really make them stand out in comparison to other characters. And those are the kind of things that I like to think about when I'm designing a characters. Like, just how can I make them not look like a cookie cutter character?
Okay.
So,
just out of curiosity, do you remember the first time you actually were drawing from a live model?
Yes, it was my freshman year in college.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. No, I had drawn in high school. I went to a school that actually had advanced placement art. So the idea for the class was for kids that were going to be art majors in college, that it was a 2-year class. And over the course of the 2 years, you were building your portfolio for your college admissions. So you got like AP credit for it, but you were, you're building your portfolio to get into art school.
Cool.
So in that class, obviously because it was a high school class, we're not nude, but we were modeling for each other. So we would occasionally have times where, one of our classmates would sit on a chair in the front of the class, which, that's awkward. I think that would make most high school kids freak out with anxiety of having that level of scrutiny.
Yeah.
It's weird. First off, it was filled with a lot of theater kids, and theater kids love attention anyway, so they were totally down with it. But it definitely felt like like we were our own. Like imagine if the Breakfast Club wasn't detention, it was actually a class.
Oh, awesome!
That's kind of what it was. Like a bunch of kids from different social groups, but we're all a little bit of misfits.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. And so yeah, we would model for each other in those circumstances where and it wasn't every week. It would just be like, I think maybe when our instructor was specifically doing work teaching about drawing portraits, that was when we would do that, where we'd sit and pose for each other. But in terms of like drawing from a live nude figure model, that was my freshman year in college. And basically I was always taking drawing classes after that. So it just continued to be something that was part of my my education and my learning and growth.
Okay.
So
see, I also remember the first time I was drawing from a live model. It wasn't, a nude or anything like that. It was a 40-year-old woman, and she was wearing like this long silk shirt. And I was really like so hoping I could figure out how to like really get the wrinkles and stuff like that in clothes. And then I started to get inside my own head going like, holy crap, am I drawing this woman, to where it'd be flattering for her, or, am I trying to do realistic? And so I kind of freaked out and ended up ruining the whole thing once again, overthinking it. So,
well, I mean, that's something that we all deal with, but I'd say the beauty of figure drawing on a regular basis is you get that chance to get into your own head and overthink the character, or not the character, but the model and your approach, like multiple times throughout the hour. And once you've screwed up 5 or 6 drawings in a row, let's say you're doing 5-minute poses or 8-minute poses. Once you screw up 5 or 6 of those, and you see that the world doesn't end and the art piece doesn't come to like revoke your artistic license,
yeah.
Like, oh wait, it's okay. Not every drawing has to be perfect. I think one of the hardest things for artists is giving yourself room and permission to make bad drawings. It's why a lot of artists don't like sharing their sketchbook with people or showing them what they do. My sketchbooks are hideous. They're all just like they look like high school doodle scribbles. I don't know how much further to draw with this thick character. This is just me just going in with a body type, because anything beyond this, I start getting into her personality. What type of clothes did she wear? Would she be wearing a halter top, or would she be wearing a dress? Would she be wearing a skirt and a tank top? Like all these other things, like does it have a band name on it? She wear wristbands or leg warmers. Like from once you get the physical body type down, and here's an interesting thing for everyone who's asking about character design to really take in, is you have to ask yourself, who is that character? Because you're just trying to, a lot of people I think are approaching the character from the outside and saying, I want to make a cool looking character design. I think if you're doing storytelling, I already said this, but I'm repeating myself, but the outside needs to reflect the inside or contrast with it. So once I get past this state, until I know who she is and why I'm designing her, what her role is going to be in the story, how she's going to interact with other characters, her personality. Again, like mentioning the bands, maybe if there's just a band that she happens to like, then I would put that band's logo on there, or just put the band's name. Or maybe I make up a fictional band. Maybe she's a bass player, and the name of her band is on her shirt, and she's always got like, I don't know. Now this is where personality starts taking over. She's always got the shoulder strap, and she's got her bass with her everywhere she goes. And all the time, like, now we get into her personality. There'll be times when she's just sitting around with other characters and hang out, and she's just sitting there having a conversation, and you just hear like a low thump, 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 thump. And you just always in the background, there's low bass thumps of that sound of a bass that's being played when it's not plugged in. And you just hear the thump, but it's so rhythmic that you're like, they're still making music and you can feel the groove of it, but you can't, like, I don't know if you've ever been around a friend who's a musician.
Oh, yeah.
Play your bass when it's not plugged in, because it still sounds like music, but it's just this weird thump. Like it's just really like it's not like, you know, it's the faint echo of the sound of a bass. And maybe that's part of her personality, is that just whenever she's hanging out and she's having a conversation, she's just doodling and noodling on her bass. You know, the point is that the design needs to reflect the person's personality. So you can't go too much. You could, I live this way. I could go further, much like we did. Notice how when we were talking, to flip back, let's turn this off and go back to now to Hades. We started fleshing out the personality because I got as far as I could just on looks. And even though, you know, we don't have a plot that they're living in yet and their role in the story, we needed their personality in order to really make. I mean, and I'm really interested. I wanted to go back and watch the episode with Joe, but I didn't have time. I'm really interested in how much you guys talked about the personalities of the characters in the design, because it might just be me. So it may not be other artists. Other artists can just create fully fleshed, cool-looking characters without getting that into their personality. But in my case, my approach is all that inner personality is what drives everything. So, yeah, I'm sorry I rambled over the question, but I mean, how much?
No. Dominic says you've gone far enough. Thank you. You've given me a starting point, and I appreciate it. So
I'm happy to hear it. Good luck.
That's what this channel is all about, is, you know, trying to teach everybody how to, you know, create the comic from the ground up. And so, yeah, personality is a huge aspect of a character. So
I am curious. Move this up to like 60%. This to 60%. So if we're leaving it up to the audience vote, what do you guys think about half face versus wearing the old face wearing the young face?
All right, chat, go ahead and chime in. At the half face, where it's the younger version on one side with the older on the other, or the old wearing the mask. What do you guys think? Me personally, I love the mask, but it's all up to the chat. Come on, guys, chime in.
It's okay if they take a minute. It'll give me a chance to. Yeah. Well, see, because now I'm enjoying the noodling. Because now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, I can start separating stuff out and making this.
Adding all the shadows and stuff like that. Okay. Dominic, she prefers the mask. Amy says old wearing mask. So, all right.
The gang is after my heart. That's where I was leaning to. I was hoping they were going to say that.
Joe says love the mask.
So, I mean, how far did you guys go in terms of designing the full body? Because at this point, I've just designed sort of the face. We haven't gotten into the body.
With Poseidon, we did kind of from the waist up, but I mean, it was enough to actually give us a good indication of, you know, this is the character. This is what we're going for.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these layers. I'm going to duplicate them so that I can take one of these and shrink it down to look at it while I'm sort of fleshing out the body. So let's just put that up there in the corner, or at least the upper torso. So I'm going to turn this back on. Hang on. Take a sip of water here. Clear. Because I'm all about the weird thoughts. Remember how I mentioned them being kind of hunched over?
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of now is having the body kind of emerging out of a snail shell.
Emerging out of a snail shell. I'm trying to picture that in my head.
Well, you're not going to have to picture it for long, so I'm going to draw it. I'm going to start with a small stick figure, and maybe I'll just drag it out and make it larger. But let's say that we've got a frail old body.
I'm sorry, Dominic. That was my bad. Yeah, I am so sorry.
So let's see, a frail old body. And I will tell you that this is probably something that I think would be more challenging to design. Well, actually, no, not so much. I was going to say they should definitely have a cane, and the cane should be unique. Now, here is the problem. My instinct is to want to make the cane covered with screaming bodies and screaming faces, kind of like the gates of hell.
Really? Okay.
But I'm thinking about the fact that that's all and good for someone who's designing the character. That would suck for the artist who's drawing the actual comic.
True.
I'd like to think that, like, if Marvel or DC hired me out to do character designs, I would at least be thoughtful enough to not put something in there that would be a real pain in the ass to draw. Like even this with the skull around the head, it needs refinement so that it can be simplified, that an artist could draw it quickly.
Okay.
I think that's all of these concepts. Just the idea of even having the a young face on an elderly head, that needs to be refined, because you want to make it something that if an artist just needed to indicate it quickly, they could. But you want to kind of set this up so that if someone was looking at it, like just look at the silhouette of the character, that it would be easy for them to do. So
could you do something like a bone from that same Titan that you actually got the skull from?
Yes, we could. I'm
just spitballing. That's,
No, I think the bone is a good thing. I was trying to think of what would be an interesting cane design. I think that it's not there 100% yet. The cane does need something. Trying to think of something else. I'm gonna leave it like a normal cane while I flesh out the rest of the body. But the idea that I'm going for is something that's simple, but is another symbol of death or mortality. Or, well, I mean, Hades is the underworld, not death per se. So it could just be something that deals with the spirit realm.
So Dominic says maybe a cane with Cerebrus as the handle, part that you don't hold. Don't know if there's a special name for it. There's a special name for it.
Well, just the tip of it. And can I tell you, first off, you just gave somebody else a character to design, because Cerebrus they would have to have Cerebrus as a pet in this story. And it would make sense that I would design both. If I'm designing one, I should design both. But I think that in the time I've already spent doing this, that would just having to design the dog look. I think giving someone to design a sidekick for, well, you know what? I guess that could be, maybe another person does it, maybe they don't. I don't know.
I will probably have Fry do it.
So let me see here. You know what? The more I think of the snail shell thing, I'm just gonna loosely draw it on here. I was thinking of it like this, like the body's kind of coming out of that shape. But as I'm sketching this out, I feel like that looks stupid. It's not working for me. And that's okay. That's part of the whole trying stuff out, seeing where it lands. Go back to a little bit of a smaller line here so I can kind of noodle a little bit. You know what? This, I think, is close enough to what I was thinking that I can get in here and let's just blow this up and go for it. Do you do that a lot where you're drawing and you'll twist it so you can use your natural art of your hand?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I get caught up in whatever I'm working on and I forget. I'm like, oh wait, no wonder I'm having trouble with this. I'm not, because when I'm drawing traditionally, I'm constantly sliding the paper around and at every which way angle.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm drawing digitally, it's like I know that it's actually easier doing it like that, but I think it's because when I'm drawing traditionally, that how far do I slide it feels so much more intuitive than it does digitally. When it's digital, it feels like I have to be a little bit more calculated. And I don't know why. I think it's just maybe more of me still getting used to the device and the process. But the other thing I find, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I slide mine around and I'll twist it and zoom in and out probably more than I ever would with paper.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny, speaking of the zooming in and out, that's the thing that I just remembered is I often have to force myself to not zoom in too much because you'll go in there, or at least in my case, I'll go in and I'll really start noodling and I'll realize I'm putting in detail that's not going to read in the finished drawing. And it's like, it's going to be so small, like it'll read, but it really doesn't add much. And I have to force myself to remember to just limit my detail to what really adds to the drawing.
Okay.
Like gild the lily, as it were. And I think that's a bad habit. It's something that I can easily fall into if I'm not careful. I don't know if you find that true. Well, I mean, you said that your art tends to be more detailed, but I don't know how much of that is intentional versus you just render your way through figuring out what the piece is.
I just start going into too much detail and everything, and then I'll zoom in, and like you were saying, some of it won't even read, and by the time I get done, I'm like, I can't even make the eraser small enough to take half that stuff. So
yeah. So I mean, you look at some guys like David Finch. His work is incredibly detailed, and it looks great, and it looks like that's what it's supposed to look like. I wouldn't want to render like that, but it's nice to look at. I'm like, it's beautiful as long as I don't have to draw it. It's like, maybe I want to be Alex Toth. Maybe I'm just lazy.
No, I'm looking at your comic here, and no, you're definitely not lazy.
See, this is one of those things right there where I'm drawing this and I'm realizing, okay, the skull, I'm making it too complicated. That already there, drawing that skull on there, it should be something simplified that I could have just gone in. This is where we get into the pragmatic or practical aspects of character design. Because I'm like, as I'm sitting here drawing this, I just realizing, you know what, let me put that back there and just erase the inside. I'm putting in too much stuff, and I have to figure out what is the way to make this that if another artist were coming in, they could just come in and they wouldn't have to really think a lot about it. So it's just a matter of fewer lines, simpler. Just eyes, just sockets, nose, couple of teeth. Just simpler.
See, I can't do that. I personally, I have to add all the little details, and that's something I really struggle with.
Well, I mean, I struggle with it too. It's just like, see, that's the difference. Like, you know, I literally the problem you have, I have the same problem. I caught myself doing it, and I think that's the trick is catching yourself earlier in the process. Because like you said, you'll do it and then you'll go back in with an eraser and try. You realize, oh wait, it's too small for you even erases. It's not going to show up. It's asking yourself, is this too detailed? Earlier in the process. That's all. It's when you ask yourself, when do you start troubleshooting your drawings? If you troubleshoot it too soon, you just erase everything because it all sucks. Like, oh no, that's garbage. Oh no, that line's garbage. Oh, that line's garbage, and then you never get anything. But if you wait too long, you spend your time and you render this thing and you make this finished piece, and it looks interesting and not bad because of the rendering, but you look at the fundamentals and say it's not a technically good drawing. It's flawed. The volumes are wonky. It doesn't feel completely like a person, or not all of the joints line up properly, or the proportions don't look like what I want them to be. So it's finding the right time to start. When is the right time to? And I don't even want to say nitpicking because that's negative. When is the right time to start troubleshooting the drawing? And it's very interesting now that I've got this skull on top of the head as a crown, because now it really is just like they're just wearing a skull. It's not as big as I had first imagined, like a helmet. Yeah, I've shrunk it down a little bit from what it was before.
So JR asks, what drawing tools do you use from the pad to the program?
Well, I am drawing with an iPad Pro, the 12-inch. The app that I am currently using is Procreate. That's my weapon of choice. I've tried Infinity Sketch, and I do like it. It has a lot of really good options, but I don't. I like how Procreate works so much that I've mostly stuck with this for my digital drawing. A lot of people really like Clip Studio Paint and Sketchbook Pro. Sketchbook Pro, neither one of those programs ever really took for me. And I'm not saying that they are bad programs. I'm saying I tried them, and they just didn't really jive with me. So those are my tools for that. For working traditionally, I actually mostly these days, what I'm doing with the latest issue of Morningstar is I'm drawing all of my layouts like this at comic size, and then I convert them to blue line in Procreate. Actually, I don't know if you've done that, but I found a simple.
I haven't.
Huh?
I haven't done that yet.
Well, I'll show you real quick if you'd like. It only takes a minute.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
So in my palettes, I have there's a bright blue that's like kind of a almost tealish kind of neon blue. It's not quite non-photo blue, but I have it in my palette. So when I want to make something into a non-photo blue, what I'll do is I will create a new layer, and I will fill the screen with that blank layer with this blue. Once I have this color, I'll go into my my layer options, and I will slide down to vivid light. And vivid light pretty much gives me like a non-photo blue if you were to just print this out on a printer. But when I ink, I want the stuff at a lower opacity. So what I'll do as a secondary adjustment is that I will create another blank layer and I'll fill that with white. And then I will drop that one down, maybe down to about 80% opacity. So usually 90, somewhere between 80 and 90. So now it's really faint. You can't really see the sketch I was working on, but if you look at the characters that are that I had darkened up, this is about how dark I really need anything to be in order to print it out on blue line and ink it. I print this out, it'll look exactly like what I want it to be for me to go ahead and ink, and then I just print that out, ink traditionally, and scan it in.
Okay.
So that's my my blue line process there, which, you know, I figure enjoy it while it lasts, because I'm going to, you know, move over to doing comics completely digitally soon. But part of that is just the pragmatic, you know, the thing that I've realized as I've been working on this final issue of Morningstar is just how long it takes me to finish an issue. And I really, I want to get faster, be able to put out more books per year. So part of that is just switching to working digital, but also trying to find kind of a rougher, looser style. Because, like, you know, I mentioned Alex Toth earlier, but there's guys like Dave McKeon and Eddie Campbell who do a very, very loose style. But you feel like you always feel like you're in the control, you're in the arms of a master draftsman. Even though it's loose and kind of gnarly. So I'm putting on some sandals here since it's a Greco-Roman. Where is Hades just plain Roman or Greek?
I
think Hades is Greek, not
really?
Roman.
I mean, yeah.
So I'm putting them in sandals. I guess I'm just now trying to figure out what else the rest of the costume would be. Huh. That's an interesting idea.
Share with the class.
Huh?
I said, share with the class.
Well, what I'm thinking is giving them a belt that's not necessarily particularly unique, just kind of like a Greco-Roman belt. Now, Hades is emperor of the underworld, so I definitely see them wearing some sort of cape or cloak. So I'm imagining that there's maybe, zoom out a little bit or just move this over. I was thinking about just leaving the torso a skeleton and then maybe just having fire in the belly.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I think that like, imagine. Well, I'll show you in a sec. Well, no, I can do it here real quick.
I'm almost picturing like a Ghost Rider kind of thing, but like inside the bones.
Exactly. Like, okay, let's say that this is the belt. And I want there to be a symbol on the belt, but I don't want it to be a skull. I almost want it to be something that's kind of like sad and beautiful, something that's poetic. If anybody in the chat has a suggestion for a very poetic and beautiful symbol for death, let me know. Because whatever it is, I would put it on the belt. But here's the belt line. And then just I I think it's probably easier to render with just a glow and a couple of lines to kind of suggest fire. And then much like you said, kind of like Ghost Rider. The rib cage goes up. I didn't really get the sense of the floating ribs there.
I can honestly say I've never had to draw the floating ribs outside of the body.
Well, and this time they'd be sticking out there.
Come on, chat. Do you guys have any suggestion for that symbol on the belt? We're looking for something poetic, not necessarily a skull.
Well, I will tell you that the thing that comes to mind is, and my only thing is I would want to be careful to not make it look like a prison tattoo, but I imagine just a simple eye with a teardrop.
Oh, wow.
That's, and not even filling it in, almost as if like, well, hang on, I have to move this over so I can manipulate it the way I want to. Let me grab the lasso and let's move this down here.
Andrew Fry says AF always seemed poetic to him. Dominic says a cracked hourglass.
Cracked hourglass could work too.
Yeah, that's...
Let's say that, because this is so abstract, it might be hard. I mean, it's a simple shape, but it might be hard for someone to figure out what it is. So, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, see, this is the kind of thing where I start really geeking out on character design, is all of the intricate possibilities of, like, it's the little touches for me that really make a character. So I'm thinking, all right.
All right. JR says, let me see. You know the heart that the Catholics use?
The heart with the barbed wire around it?
Yeah, what about the hand squeezing it instead of cradling it? And then he says, or a broken wing.
Those are all good suggestions. I just wonder if they're too difficult to draw. Because again, I'm trying to come back to the idea of like a very simple, something as simple as just a skull. I like the hourglass one, but I would also have to figure out how to make it not look like the Black Widow.
Oh, yeah.
Hourglass, broken wing.
So I just got handed a suggestion, which is a white rose or a wreath. Let me see. Back on chat. JR says Satan as a fallen angel.
You know what I think? A black rose.
Okay.
I think a black rose. As I started drawing the that in there, I think that seems to, because that's something that you could, like, if you were drawing and someone just said put a black rose on their belt, you could knock that out real quick. You wouldn't think much about it, right?
So JR, the reason we're laughing is Gerimi famously does Morningstar, which is the story of Lucifer's kind of fall from grace, told in a Western setting. So you're just finishing up with issue 8 now, is that right?
Yes, final
Oh.
issue. I'm wrapping up the story.
I can't wait to read it, man.
I'm bringing it as fast as I can. I can't wait. When I say I can't wait to be finished, it makes it sound like I'm unhappy or dislike doing it. And the truth is just more that it's going to be very sad when I'm done because I've spent so long with it. It's like that comic has become like a constant companion. But I'm so eager to tell more stories and do more work that I'm looking forward to wrapping that up just so I can move on to more. So what I'm doing here is I wanted to come and take one more pass now, because now that I've got the skull, I'm thinking of the cape and the royal look of the character, and it gives me a sense now of what I think the final evolution of this costume is. So it's a little difficult to do a well, no, not really. So starting with just trying to get the posture down.
So what are you drawing right here?
I'm doing sort of a 3/4 version of what I just drew in the profile, but now I thought about, I can put that cape in there. Actually, you know what though? Here's the thing. I'm not sure if the belly thing works completely with the hunched over look, because what I originally thought of was, let me just draw a straightforward shot of them, but then I thought, well, I gotta get that belt in there and the fire and the hunch. That's the main thing, is that I feel like that hunch over is a big part of the character's personality, at least as I'm conceiving it here. And I wasn't sure necessarily how well I could convey all of that from a front view. And also the fact that I wanted to get that that cape. It's an interesting idea.
You know, my kids just came down. I got to say goodnight to them. So let me mute real quick.
All right.
You do your thing. I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
All right.
All right. Is Matt gone? That's right. Number one fan is crashing. Jeremy, what's up, man? You have no idea how long I've been waiting. Oh. Hey, Matt.
You have returned.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
I think I forgot to mention when you guys asked me on here, it's like I'm not a particularly fast artist. So that's the other thing is sometimes you get people on, on live streams. It's like, oh, cool. They're not going to character design live. It's like, nah, I take a long time to think through the character. I take a long time to draw it.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to watch, man.
Oh, yeah. Amy earlier said that she is absolutely in love with your process. I personally love it. I love every aspect of it.
Well, thank you.
Dominic asked,
Amy, that was me, Matt.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Here, look. Andrew Fry on Facebook. I am simply in love with Jeremy's process. I swear. Don't you take this away from me, Matt.
Do I want to know?
No, it's just anytime he jumps off the stream, I make sure to jump on. Got to keep the ball rolling. Got to keep the entertainment high. Got to keep things exciting around here.
Well, my kids just started second grade. They're on their third day, and so yeah, getting them to go to bed is kind of a hassle sometimes.
That happens.
Dominic says, I remember those years.
Dominic says, do all artists talk to themselves while drawing?
The good ones do.
Sure. Matt Langston on Facebook says, my favorite people.
I don't know why, but I want to give them long gloves.
I feel like that makes sense for science. Yeah, that is super rad, man. Super cool. All right, I'm going to drop back off and do my normal job as viewer on Wednesdays.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Yeah. Later, guys.
Bye. So you were saying before that you took classes back in high school, and now you're gonna take some more online classes.
Yes.
How long have you been taking classes in just art?
Well, I mean, I was a fine art major in college, and again, taking the AP art in high school, but I had a coworker of mine take me to this place in LA called the Animation Guild. And the instructor that I've been studying with there, Carl Ganas, when I originally started taking classes with him, it was simply the fact that I'm a comic book artist and I don't feel like I draw well enough to express the ideas I want to express.
Okay.
So I wanted to be, a better artist. You know what? And as I'm drawing this, I don't know why, but I feel the urge to put two cones coming out of this, like not even like horns, but I guess two cones coming out of the back of the head. I don't know what those are even supposed to be.
So I'm thinking like almost like tusks kind of thing, or
yeah, they could be tusks. I mean, I don't want to just make it like, oh, it's Hellboy's skull or something like that. And I'm almost thinking like decorative, like they're glued on or something, like mini fezzes.
Okay.
I'm not saying that has to be there. Sometimes not every idea I have is a winner. Sometimes I just think of wacky stuff, and I'm like, you're allowed to say, no. I'm not gonna get offended if you're like that. That's wackiness. That's madness, because it very well could be.
Everything we're doing on this show has been kind of wackiness at some point in time. You should have heard some of the ideas that have come through on the chat, and it was like, oh, okay, so that's the direction we're going. So no, there's no, I guess, limit is like, oh no, can't do this. It's too wacky or anything like that. So you're designing this character. If you want to add it, have at it.
Well, I mean, I already talked myself out of it.
Oh, JR says ram horns.
Well, the problem with it is that I've seen all these cool, like I know Joe Michael Linzer, his version of Death is a skull with ram horns, and I feel like I wanted something to break up the silhouette a little bit, but that didn't seem to be it.
If you want to break up the silhouette,
I mean, I could put barbed wire around the skull, but that also feels a little bit trite. That's the thing. There's you know, the whole exercise of like when you're trying to solve a problem, to just come up with like 10 ideas because the first 5 you're going to come up with are what everyone else thought of, and then the next 2 or 3 are going to be just garbage, wacky stuff, and then maybe like the last 2 are the actual interesting ideas. That's usually the motif that I go through. Is like I don't think we want to take the time to do that here, but normally if my approach for character design is I'll go through and I'll end up doing like a list of like 10 different possible things that could be sticking out of the top of the skull.
Just to, my quick thought of in order to kind of break up the silhouette, and you could do like maybe a top knot or something like that just on the skull itself.
Yeah, that is an idea.
But let me see. JR says, have you thought about maybe having him wear faces, hence the name Man of Many Faces? Or hence the name the Many Faces of Death, sorry. Like Leatherface. We did do the design where he's wearing the mask, so oh yeah. And it's cool looking. Oh, as you can see right here, yeah, he's got the mask, and right now he's drawing the kind of old face behind the mask. I still love that kind of regal look that he has with the cape. Even kind of old and decrepit, still has that powerful look to him.
Well, that's the thing. Like from the personality that I was describing, it's almost as if they're kind of like Darth Vader. Like they're creepy, but not like the Darth Vader that we've seen in movies now, where he's doing all this badass stuff. Like, remember how when you first saw Darth Vader, how he moved very stiff? And they're all just sort of like, later on they explain it by, well, he fell into a thing of lava. But the idea of someone being stiff but powerful.
Okay. Yeah.
And I almost like the fact that as king, as let's say liege or emperor of the underworld, that they seem to move very slowly and methodically until somebody swings something at them, and then they barely move and then catch it.
Yeah. All right. So Dominic says, I don't know if this will help break up the silhouette. What about a scythe or on back, or have him carrying something in general?
I don't hate that idea.
No, I'm digging it. I'm just trying to figure out kind of what that would look like in my head. So,
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to have something breaking up that silhouette.
then again, I think if that fire is always glowing, it's going to naturally break up the silhouette on its own. Looks like Toxic is back. He says, wait, you guys still live? I guess it won't hurt to watch longer.
No, we really should wrap it up. I've just been going and going and going. And just a little bit of tendons kind of connecting, like the back muscles there.
So are you still thinking a little bit of flesh still on those old bones there?
Yeah, just a little bit. And I'm thinking the legs also, flesh, put the liver spots on the legs there with the sandals.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you, I definitely don't think that we have time tonight for me to do it, but I'm not 100% happy with this pose. Like, if I were to turn this over to somebody else who's drawing a comic book, like, I wouldn't feel like, oh, this is the character sheet that I would give them. So, but I'm also not sure if I have time to come back and draw another finished piece. If I can come up with a good pose, then maybe I'll just email you one later on and be like, oh, no, this is what it really should be.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely be adding it to the comic book. Oh, it's amazing.
You know what? Let's just up this all the way up to 100%. Because I feel like the silhouette will pop a little bit more if I just go ahead and just drop black in there. Maybe a serpent.
Oh, cool.
Maybe it's one of those things where the serpent seems like it just wraps around into a ball at the head of the cane, but it'll open its eyes and strike if they command it to.
I think I could write that into a pretty awesome character. Like the cane alone.
Oh, cool.
See, I'm thinking like a serpent that's kind of essentially his conscience, Like he carries around his own little Jiminy Cricket.
And he probably needs it because I'm betting it that they're a jerk sometimes. I mean, Hades is never really painted as a sympathetic character in stories.
True. You know, and that's one of those things that I don't know why, because everything I've ever read about him, he wasn't an evil guy. He was just, that was his job, you know?
Yeah.
When they divided everything up, it didn't sound like he was exactly happy over the fact that he gets to rule the dead. But
he did not want to rule the underworld. Got twisted on him.
Now, granted, he did do some pretty messed up stuff with, you know, tricking Persephone and stuff like that, but
and then there was Orpheus.
Mm-hmm. I love the frail look along with that. I mean, just the skull crown, just so menacing, and you know, you have the cape and it just, like you were saying, there's a lot of contradictions just in that image alone.
Yeah, although as I'm drawing it now, I'm already thinking about how this character design still needs to be simplified. This is one of the things where, like, this is where my friends would jump in and say, dude, this is why it takes you like a year to put out each issue. Because I keep looking at this, and it's not wanting to refine it because I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. This, again, the thing that I said, if I were designing a character for somebody else, I wouldn't feel comfortable handing it off until it was something that I felt like they could draw quickly and easily. And this character needs some further refinement. Like the same way that I kind of needed the where I just did that little sketch of the skull side. I feel like now that I've got this cape as a form, I almost want to draw a version where it's almost like Batman, where it's mostly cape with some skeleton and flames peeking out underneath.
Okay.
But the point is that it would still need some refinement here. Although I will tell you, as I'm sitting here and just drawing that jawbone around, I think the interesting thing I'm noticing is that if that belly thing, you know, works, then what would be interesting is that the character is to some degree always underlit. Like if I were to throw another layer on here and drop the opacity down, the fact that they're always going to be getting
So Dominic says, I heard somewhere he was supposed to rule Olympus because he was the oldest brother, and Zeus somehow tricked him, and that's how he got stuck in the underworld. Then he goes on to say he doesn't know the story really well. I will be doing a lot of research on each individual character, so I'll let you know, Dominic. And then JR says, yeah, underlit, nice. Okay, so Jeremy, are you familiar with like the story of the fates with the string? I believe they touched on it in the Hercules movie, how they could actually, you know, cut the strings and stuff, hence ending their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you were to do the fire underlit, could that be like almost a representative of the life of the gods themselves? At first, big, bright, and then as time has gone by, it's almost like a candle going out.
I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, it could be something almost like the if his fire ever goes out, all the kind of like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Like if his flame ever goes out, maybe all of the gods will die. So maybe it's one of those things where sometimes other characters are forced into an unholy alliance with him because they may not like him, but in the end, they all need him.
Yeah. Well, JR likes that idea, so thank you, JR. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that we are about as far as I can take this right now. So I can definitely shoot you this one, but I feel like I want to at some point come back and see if I can just do another pass and kind of tighten it up even more. Like that's the other thing. I certainly don't get embarrassed or shy about drawing in front of people. But for me, the process of character design, it's a deep process. It's not something that I just bang out. I try to be very, very thoughtful, methodical. And it's a slow process of me just slowly moving pieces around and trying different things. I mean, I've got to tell you, now that we've got this design, I don't know how much. First off, I feel like we've lost a little bit of the old man face behind there. So I would want to figure out how to pull that out more. And now also with this character design, as much as I really liked the hunch, I don't know how much. I don't know whether they really need it or not.
Well, just kind of spitballing, that could be an element of the story. At first, kind of just old, decrepit, and then as the story progresses, kind of gets his groove back, is more straightens up essentially.
That's an idea.
To loom over everybody. So,
all right.
Then,
well,
JR says, Jeremy, my man, you are an awesome artist. Thank you for sharing crypto comics and the rest of us.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. I just try to make good stuff.
Then that comic says, I don't know why, maybe it's too much anime, but the line of the cape in front of him looks like there should be a sword there.
It's very possible. I think it was more of I just wasn't sure what to do with the other arm. It's also got kind of a Tetsuo feel, like kind of at the end of Akira.
Okay.
So yeah, Hades.
Oh, that is amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Well, let me see. All right, we should get probably wrapping this up. We're at 2.5 hours now. I am sorry for keeping you so long.
I'm the slow one. How long was Joe's?
Well, he was in the hotel, so his internet kept cutting out. So I think, he was probably using that as an excuse after a little bit, probably just pulled the plug and was like, You know.
Well, but I did look in and I saw, I didn't have a chance to watch the whole thing, but I saw when he was designing the fish hooks and putting them in there. And it looked like he did a pretty finished looking character design, whereas I did a gang of sketches and one that's sort of rendered out, but I still wouldn't call this a finished design.
You know, so that's the thing about the different creators. Everybody has their own process. And that was kind of why I wanted to do the character design episode twice with both of you guys, because you guys are so different in the way you approach everything. And, you know, what works for one person won't work for somebody else. And so I wanted to kind of show everybody the different stages, you know, the different steps. So, yeah.
All right. Well, this is good. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. We're gonna do that creator spotlight. Why don't I work on a revision of this during the creator spotlight?
Oh, okay.
So that'll be it. So I'll try to bring it somewhere near like a better pose and something that feels like a finished character, like not a turnaround, but like a finished pose. You're saying this is the character's design. So that'll be the goal for now that I've worked out. Because really think about how long it took me just to get to like the skeletal thing and the skull and the fire in the belly. It was the thinking about what the character looked like that took the most of the time, not the drawing the singular design.
All right.
So
all right. Again, everybody, he's talking about Friday right here at 7:00 Mountain Standard Time. We're going to have Gerimi back, and we're going to kind of interview him for a creator spotlight, and we're going to go through all his comics. We're going to really pick his brain on kind of just everything about his life and, you know, and art in general. So be back for that. It'll be fun.
All right. Thank you for having me. This was great.
Anytime. We love having you. Well, that's going to be it for us today. So thank you so much. It's been so fun. Thank you, Gerimi. Please, guys, check out his stuff on Crypto Comics and on his own website. Man, you can get some beautiful prints. I ordered one and it hasn't shown up yet. I was going to have it on the wall right here. It's one of my favorite pieces that you've done, which is the Night Nurse. We've talked about it before.
Yes, thank you.
So we'll be back on Friday with Gerimi. And next week, we're going to have Cardell Cole helping us with some the title cards for the comics. So once again, get your ideas in that chat and let us know what you want for the title of the comic. Oh, and also looks like Dominic looks like he just is subscribed to you on YouTube. So
fantastic. Cool. Well, you can watch me do it more of the same, working on my Morningstar. You can watch that final issue take fruition.
Oh, I love that. All right. So smash that like button, everybody, and let us know what you want to see in the chat. And it's been fun. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.